This is Alan Karpick with Tom Dienhart and Brian Neubert and our Sunday conversation. And it is Sunday, September the 6th. And we want to thank our sponsor, and that's, of course, the Purdue Union Club Hotel. And their support of not only this Zoomcast, but to support of us. It is now open and fully renovated, the 811 restaurant as well. Quite a new facility. And one of our interns, Jordan Jones, has written a couple things on our site, and I've been there as well. Quite a facility in terms of that. When you get back to campus, it's a place, a must-see from that perspective of an opportunity to see the first phase. There'll be another big renovation on the bottom floor of the Union for next year as well. So, guys, never a dull moment. We have news. It seems like and speculation of we're all trying to figure out not only from the pandemic, but what's next for football, for basketball. And Brian, I'm going to start with you. We'll talk some basketball. It seems pretty clear that November 25th is going to be the start date of basketball. What's the latest there, and what is your take on where they are with all of that?
Yeah, in 10 days, on September 16th, the NCAA is planning on coming out and revealing its plan for basketball season. It's been widely reported that the target date is November 25th. I have every reason in the world to believe that will be approved. Basketball will get the green light to play then. Obviously, there might be some smoothing out that has to be done if in the Big Ten specifically, if basketball is being cleared to play before football. You might have to get some clearance from the presidential level, but NCAA wide, it is going to be November 25th. After that is determined, they will determine how many games the season will entail, and whether that's Big Ten only, conference play only, or a combination thereof. I would not anticipate the schedule to look anything like it looks like on paper right now for Purdue, at least. But there will be a season. There will absolutely be a season, most likely starting on November 25th. There will absolutely, positively, in my opinion, in everyone's opinion, be an NCAA tournament. As I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, the NCAA has begun trademarking some terminology for what that NCAA tournament will be called, the battle in the bubble or what have you. So there will be a season, there will be an NCAA tournament, and that is obviously something to look forward to.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, Brian, talk a little bit about, we know the Big Ten is going to play the Big Ten. Talk about the possibility of maybe non-conference games getting worked in here somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, I don't. We'll kind of see where things are, whether or not travel is going to be something people want to do. The thing about basketball is, I think it's so much more manageable because you're almost in these bubbles. You're almost in these traveling bubbles because you travel as a 30-person, whatever it may be, traveling party here and there. You don't really interact with very many people. You get there, you go to the arena for your shoot around. The arena's empty. You go to the hotel. You don't really interact with anybody. You bring food in. You go to the arena the next day. You're pretty much quarantined away from everybody, and understand too that the likelihood is these arenas aren't going to have the same amount of people they normally would. It's really not that unmanageable a situation to play on the road in basketball. I don't think. Whether or not they're still going to do it, I don't know. The other part of it too is if the season's starting on November 25th, you have to determine what all goes into the operation of the games in the Big Ten, how many days you need between games and things like that. If you have to spread your entire Big Ten season over that time frame, or if you're going to play a 26-game Big Ten schedule, as opposed to just a 20-game Big Ten schedule, a full round robin, if you will, that's almost going to have to start at the end of November to get all those games in. So whether it's 26 Big Ten games or whether it's 20 Big Ten games and a half a dozen non-conference games, whatever it may be, that's kind of left to be determined. But I don't think there's really any obstacles toward Purdue or toward the Big Ten at least having a full, if not even fuller, Big Ten schedule.
I heard I think on Thursday of even the Maui Invitational had contracting with the city of Asheville, North Carolina, to have its there's all kinds of talk about whether you can have any of these. Purdue was scheduled to go to Cancun, but that got moved to Florida, if I remember right. But
Yeah.
you feel, I mean, it's still too early to tell whether there might be some of these games where you have a consortium, if that's the right word, of teams that all come to one site and play. Is that what you're thinking might happen if they go off the Big Ten grid completely?
You can bubble a basketball team for 3 to 5 days. You can't bubble a basketball team for 3 to 5 weeks. You can't bubble a basketball team for 3 to 5 months, but you can do it for 3 to 5 days pretty easily. That's kind of what these preseason events are. When they go to Atlantis, they're all on site. They're in the casino. They walk through the casino. If the casino's empty, you don't really have to worry all that much about it. The casino may not be empty, but you can keep a team away from, the world around it. You can get it just into the gym when it needs to be in the gym, and so on and so forth. So you could theoretically have these events. It's just a matter of whether or not, if the season's not going to start till November 25th, you have the time to get those events in over the window of time you're going to play your season. I think it would be doable to get 8 teams in the same place, to bubble them, and then to just kind of have that sort of thing. It would depend too on, I think, rapid response testing. If they have access to what they need from a testing perspective to get to where you can test guys the morning of games, to make damn certain that there's not somebody in there that's going to give COVID-19 to 8 teams at once, I think you can have kind of a micro NBA bubble for the span of a few days at least.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, they're going to start that November 25th start date is by design, because it's the day before Thanksgiving. And of course, that's a huge viewership time in normal times. And I would think it'd still be the case this time to do the same. So a lot of interesting developments. Obviously, Tom, we read yesterday, or on Thursday, I think it was, some more under the Pac-12 talking in the football terms, but again about this rapid response test and the ability to do that. We've talked about that in weeks past, about the need for initial and quick testing. That obviously could be if that can come to fruition, and it sounds like it can. Not only it makes it guarantee we're going to have a basketball season, but certainly makes football more tenable if all this can happen at a relatively inexpensive rate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get the results, I think, in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can test these guys hour before they hit the practice field every time, daily, obviously. So, again, that's a real game changer. We all know that. We've read about it. We understand the implications of, I guess, cheap testing, accurate testing, quick turnaround testing. And again, what we're hearing is that's obviously out there and could become more available on a massive scale basis. So yeah, that would be huge for football moving forward. And of course, basketball, as Brian says, much more manageable anyway. And again, that would super facilitate the hopes of getting their season in. So yeah, we're all keeping our eyes on that. And also, fellas, we'll see if what the Big Ten's plans are moving forward here with some type of a season this academic year. That crazy news or rumors about an October start that flew out earlier this week were false. That's not going to happen. I don't think a November start's off the table, but again, a January start, in my mind, is probably the one that makes the most sense, and maybe the one that the Big Ten ends up, finally pulling the trigger on some point here.
I mean, Brian, you've covered, both of you have, for a long time professionally, but what are we learning about it? I mean, this obviously is unprecedented times, but this is just we know there's positioning going on. We know the Big Ten in some ways wants to, I don't know if it's fair to say they need to have, they're under fire, obviously, over the August 11th decision, and that's been much ballyhooed. But what effect, if you're Kevin Warren of the Big Ten, can we say definitively about what we're seeing with all these rumors and all this stuff, or should we somehow just be patient and wait for this all to come to pass?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of posturing. I think we're seeing a lot of a lot of kind of shakedown attempts. I think obviously a lot of people were very unhappy about the decision the Big Ten made. If they weren't necessarily unhappy about the decision they made, they were unhappy about when the decision was made. You know, I think how it came down seemed like kind of a fly-by-night sort of thing. I think obviously everybody wants to play. Fans want them to play. Coaches want to play. Players want to play. And I think you're seeing a lot of wishful leaking kind of going on around the schools who have been the most vocal about wanting to play. Coaches and players and whoever, even athletic directors, can tell people whatever they want about the plan, but it's the presidents and it's the Big Ten office that are going to make this decision. And like the October thing Tom mentioned, you can't say September's not safe, but 30 days from now we're good. You can't do that. You've painted yourself into a corner here. October is not happening. It is just not happening. November, you know, does make a little bit more sense, but I think what you're seeing is you're seeing people throw out the October thing to try to put public pressure again on the Big Ten. And obviously there is some political gravity to this nowadays. I know Ohio State and Nebraska at least have their congressmen involved in this. Obviously the president has weighed in. That was predictable. But I think you have a lot of forces being pushed in a lot of different directions here and kind of waiting to find out what's real. You know, if you apply some logic to it, if you just apply some strategic critical thinking to it, you know, it would seem like the November or January timeframes make the most sense here. But you're seeing a lot of stuff being put out for a lot of different reasons. Yet,
you know, Tom, the November, it's if it is November or January, you're obviously not going to be able to participate in assuming we're making all these assumptions that the ACC and Big 12 and SEC end up playing and having their own championship. Earlier is better for a number of reasons. I'm talking November or January start because of why. It's the opt-out reason. I mean, as opposed to the Jeff Brom plan, which would be maybe March timeframe.
Yeah, Jeff's plan didn't call for a start till February, even later, obviously. I'll tell you, Alan, a late November plan, I guess in my mind, is good for some parties for two reasons. Number one, you mentioned the opt-outs. I think the people in the Big Ten will hope that fewer guys will continue to opt out and they may be sticking around to play in this I guess, winter, spring season. Number two, Alan, if you start in November, from the models that we've read about, that would give you what they hope to be a 10-game season plus one. 2 extra games, Alan. If they have a January season, it sounds like that's going to be an 8-game season plus one. So do the math. 2 more games, that much more money from your TV partners. So, again, that's an advantage for a November start, I think. Again, 2 more games you get to play, and, again, maybe fewer guys will opt out. But who knows? You know, January, like I said, that would give you an 8-game season. And, you know, more than anything, too, guys, remember this. I've been told this often. We've read it. The Big Ten does not want to mess up the fall of 2021. That's their number one goal. So the quicker they can finish up this de facto season, all the better. Again, if you start in early January, you're all done by early March. By my math, that gives you, about 6 months or so before the start of the fall season. So, again, keep that in mind. The Big Ten wants to do all it can to preserve and maintain a sense of normalcy in the fall of 2021.
You know, and there are teams, and we're, you know, we've talked about the 12 hours of practice, and you've written about that a couple of weeks ago on the site, if not longer, and then that number may increase. So teams could. Jim Harbaugh said on Thursday, you know, I'm at Michigan's coach about, we're just practicing like we're getting ready to play. In essence, more posturing, do you think? I mean, and yet in Michigan is an interesting case because they're, from an administration standpoint, president standpoint, if what you read is what you believe, what you read, they were one of the ones that were more vocal about moving this or not having a season. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But it's just an interesting dynamic of coaches, different coaches handling things, and how they approach stuff.
Yeah, you know, right now there's work afoot from the Football Oversight Committee, which is led by the West Virginia Athletic Director Shane Linens, trying to deal with things like what a practice model will look like if they have a winter season, when it can start, how long it can run. And right now, they're just proposals that the Football Oversight Committee is dealing with right now to be voted on later, guys. One thing that the West Virginia AD is proposing, that this season, if it's a January season, or whenever, if it starts in November for that matter, it can only run for 13 weeks. So whenever you start, you've got 13 weeks to play your season. And you have to be done no later than April 17th as well. So those are two important points to remember that could end up being voted on here at some point. And also about the eligibility of mid-year high school transfers. A lot of people have wondered, well, hey, a guy like Yanni Karlaftis graduates early, goes to a college, and they're playing football in January. Could he be on the field playing in games? The proposal right now sounds like that would not be allowed, nor would junior college players be allowed to play in games in January, nor traditional four-year transfer. So again, just proposals right now, but those could move forward and be voted on later.
Brian, obviously the Karlaftis thing is, recruiting is recruiting, but it's an interesting, I don't know if dilemma is the right word, but interesting process here of if that comes to pass and what might be holding up guys like, Yanni Karlaftis isn't the only one in the country that's holding up a decision, but certainly one of the more higher profile guys in the Purdue sphere.
Yeah, that's a pretty big question. Those guys, I'm sure, have wanted to get answered. Purdue had a kid, Deion Burks, the wide receiver commitment, who was going to skip his senior season because he was going to enroll mid-year. Now, Michigan reversed course yesterday. They will have fall football after all. But those mid-year guys, and there are more of them than ever in history. Remember, Purdue had, 8 guys or something like that from its last recruiting class show up mid-year.
Yeah.
It's a really big deal for them. And, if you want to ask me my opinion on it, they shouldn't want to play right away because it would go from being a competitive advantage, enrolling early, getting an early start, to being a competitive disadvantage. Because all of a sudden, if you're in high school up until the holidays of your senior year, and then 3 weeks later, you're being expected to be ready to play in the Big Ten, that is a huge, potential competitive disadvantage. And if that counts as your freshman year, that negates the whole purpose of enrolling early. In which case, a lot of these guys would probably have to decide whether they want to actually do it or not. There are some guys, too, who are so supremely confident or so supremely naive that they would think that they could just walk right into whatever college they're going to and play a month later. That could be reality for some of the absolutely special ones, but for the rank and file, for the majority, that would not be the case. This is a really important question that needs to be answered for a really important segment of the recruiting community these days, a growing segment, no less. More and more of these guys, it used to just be the quarterbacks. It used to just be the JUCOs. Now it's almost like every other guy is planning to graduate high school mid-year. More and more guys are going into their senior year with the option and then deciding what to do. I don't know when this became so manageable to do, kind of all over the place. It used to be where you had to make really, really special effort to do this. But more and more of these guys are mid-year graduates nowadays, and they need answers too. Now, that whether or not that's first on the list of priorities and questions to answer, I don't know, but it's one that's going to have to be answered relatively quickly.
All right. Well, there'll be more of this and more of this discussion, I'm guarantee you, in our next Sunday conversation. Look also for next week. Our intent and plan in today's world, you never know exactly, but our plan is to have our first Gold and Black Live on Friday, September 11th. It will be done as conjunction with our partners at WLFI, but we will do it in Zoom format. But stay tuned for that. And I'm sure we're going to have more of this type of talk all throughout this week until this coming week, until we get some level of a schedule, not only for men's basketball, but football. But Tom, any parting shots or comments as you look ahead to the next week?
Yeah, just hang on to your hats. I mean, as you guys have noted, it's been a wild ride for 2 or 3 months now. It's not over yet. You get a sense where we're going to get some closure here soon, though, as we inch deeper into September. I don't know. Like I said, if I were a betting man, I would bank on maybe a January season, but we shall see. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to unfold for us.
Brian, what's up next for you?
Well, I'm just going to have some basketball stuff next week, but the point I wanted to make about that too is January season, spring season, whatever it may be, it's going to be real interesting to see who plays, because there's going to be 20 guys on Ohio State's roster, seniors, underclassmen, whatever it may be, who, are going to want to prepare for the NFL draft. And that's obviously, understandably, why Ohio State is so bent out of shape about all this. They have a national championship caliber team here. They have a legitimate Heisman Trophy guy here, and their seniors and their NFL guys might be asked to play a season uncomfortably close to their NFL preparation window without any stake in the national championship hunt, without any stake in the national awards hunt. And it's just going to be a really interesting dynamic. And it's going to affect some teams more than others, because if you're Purdue and you've already lost the one guy who's a clear-cut NFL first-rounder, obviously a few of your seniors are going to have really difficult decisions to make. Does Ohio State losing half of its team potentially I shouldn't say half its team, half its NFL guys, does that even the playing field at all in the Big Ten? I mean, I would be really upset if I were Ohio State, but again, it's the virus's fault.
Tom, I want to follow back on one other question. What from wins and losses, what helps Purdue the best in your view? I mean, that is an interesting topic, because is Purdue better suited to wait? And it would seem like maybe a more level playing field. Some of these big stars or these NFL guys all leave might make for a better chance for a team like Purdue, even though the Boilermakers have lost the services of Rondale Moore.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly, Alan. Without a doubt, it would benefit a team like Purdue, which still is sort of a work in progress. Nobody expected great things this year. Maybe a 6 or 7 win season, I think, was a fair projection. If you're seeing your competition, your elite competition in your league lose top-level talent, sure, it's going to thin out those rosters and make the competition maybe a little bit more manageable. So, yeah, you hate to see anybody leave college football. Selfishly, we want to see those guys play. I do. I'll speak for myself. I want to see Justin Fields and these guys as long as we can. But I don't begrudge them that. But, again, that's the reality. And, yeah, if there should be more attrition at places like Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, that certainly would help Purdue, I think, give them better chances when going head-to-head with those type of teams if we do indeed have that season in January and February.
All right. That will be a storyline, as I said, on a weekly one at that. All right, guys, thanks so much. Want to thank our sponsor, and of course that being the Purdue Union Club Hotel, newly renovated and open for business, and also the 811 restaurant as well. Want to thank them and thank Brian and Tom, and thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of the weekend. Have a good Labor Day, and we will look forward to more on our site next week and another version of Sunday Conversation a week from today. So have a great week, everybody. Thank you.